Hi, my name is Victor Bart and this is my Unimog 4 forward and diesel engine. And the last month I only did gearbox swaps and total rebuilds and engine in and out, and I just need another job to do. So I bought a bigger solar panel because on top is now a 190 watt panel, but that is not enough for the power usage that I'm needing. I bought this 340 watt domestic solar panel for 75 euros, and this came from a roof of a company, and they had to change the layout because of an airco, so it wasn't left over. And you can buy those leftovers for pretty cheap, because who wants one solar panel on his house? But for an Unimog or a camper, it's perfect to just buy one used overstock panel, because it's 75 euros for 340 watt, and a camper panel is way more than that. So I'm gonna swap out my 190 watt panel for this 340 watt panel, and I'm gonna swap out the solar controller to this Victron MPPT 130, and this unit is good for a 440 watt panel, and my 7515 is only good for around 200 watts. So let's show you the current 12 volt setup. I have two Aolithium batteries. Both are 100 amp hour in parallel. So I have 12 volt 200 amp hour of power. This is my Victron inverter, and this is 2000 VA, so 1600 watt continuous. And I made 230 volt out of it, and I'm powering this IKEA induction stove because I cook on electric. And while I'm driving, I have this DC-DC converter from Victron to charge up the batteries, and that works great. Only when I'm parked up, I want to have more solar to just wild camp and being off-grid, and that's why I need a bigger solar panel, because the charging while standing still is just not enough. And the current MPPT controller is this Victron MPPT 7515, which is enough for the 190 watt panel, but not for the big panel. But if I go to 24 volt on that unit, you can use more out of it. So if you have a 24 volt unit, you can have bigger solar arrays. But that's too much detail for this video. So why did I choose Victron products over other brands? I think they are really good in what they are doing. They have different price points. You can go super advanced and spend 10,000 euros, or make a basic setup of 500 euros. The smart units have Bluetooth, so you can set charge profiles, set lithium, HCM, check settings, check statistics. A super good system that really shows what you are doing. And if you start with a basic setup, you can easily upgrade units. For example, I'm gonna upgrade the charge controller to another one, and this one I can easily sell off on the used market, because everyone knows Victron, everyone knows that it's good, so it keeps its second-hand price. So I can probably sell it for 75% of the new price. And I think that's a big advantage if you are building a system and want to upgrade certain parts. So I started as a simple system with an HCM battery. Now I have the lithium and the big inverter and the induction cooking. So I now need bigger solar setup, because for the HCM setup, the smaller charge controller and the 190 watt panel was perfect to just power my fridge and have that running and some lights and the radio. But now for the induction cooking, I just need to have more power out of the solar panels. So this is the current 190 watt panel, and I make brackets from aluminium and bolt it to the roof rack, and I'm probably gonna use the same brackets for the new solar panel. And this solar panel is from around 2003, and it's just not as good anymore. solar panel that I'm gonna remove is this solar fun panel, which is 190 watt and 15 kilos. Heb je hem? The new solar panel is a little bit bigger. It's 20 centimeters wider and 10 centimeters taller, and this is a standard domestic panel size of around 1 meter by 170. And if you go higher than 400 watts, the panels become 180 or 2 meters or 2 meter 10, but most are around 1 meter wide. So yeah, check your roof size if you can fit this. And I already did modifications to the roof rack that I can fit this bigger panel. Even a little bit bigger panel just fits, but this is a really nice size. And here in the rear we have the MC4 connector, so it's plug and play. So I just need to put the bracket from this panel to this panel and put it on the roof. So the 340 watt panel is a Jinko solar panel. It's also made in China, but I checked the postcodes and it's from a different factory. And here the maximum series fuse rating is 20 amps. So I'm gonna use a 20 amp fuse for this panel. Here the maximum power voltage is 34.2 volts. So that's perfect to make 12 volt out of it, because you need to have 12 volt plus 5 volts, at least 17 volts to make a good charge cycle from the charge controller. So probably this panel also works if you run one for a 24 volt system, but you can run 2 of these panels on this solar controller if you run 24 volt. Is installed. Time to give it a clean, because it was outside. So this is the Victron Smart Solar Charge Controller MPPT 130. The 100 is the input voltage, maximum 100 volt. And 30 is the amps, and this unit can support a solar panel of 440 watt. The solar input goes on the PV and the batteries goes on here, and then you set up what kind of battery you have, and then this one also charges your battery. And the nice thing is you can use more than one charge controller to your batteries. For example, here I have a DC-DC converter, which is also a charge converter, but with a different type of input. So I can put them next to each other and they both charge the batteries. So while I'm driving, I have the car charging the batteries and the solar. And when I'm stopping, only the solar will charge. So that's always nice to have some redundancy. And this unit is super simple to install. Just the battery cables with a fuse and the solar panels with a fuse and a disconnect. That's all. So the disconnect is really important. When you're working on your system, you can just turn off the solar panels. But right now the solar panels are doing not much, but there's always a little bit of voltage flowing. But this switch here, that's my solar disconnect. And I can always disconnect the panel if I need it, or if I park it for a longer time and I don't want to have the charge controller powering up. So this is my solar disconnect, which is really useful for maintenance, or when you park up, disconnect your batteries, that you just turn off your solar panel. Otherwise your charge controller will still catch power but can't deliver it anywhere. So to work on the system, we first need to turn it off, and I have a disconnect also here for the batteries. As you can see, my power board here is getting pretty full, and this is all temporary set up till I gonna do the real camper build. And this is just a camper layout simply made just to try out if I like the layout. And my plan is to remove the small smart charge controller and then route the cables, of course, to this unit, but there's not much room to place this unit. But this Phoenix 12375, which is a really nice inverter, is a little bit redundant with the big 2000 VA inverter. So let's remove this one and then use the 10mm cables to the smart charge controller. The fuse is already 40 amp, so I don't have to do much to change the layout. So the system is built up and I really like how clean it looks on this side. This side is still a big mess, but this side is pretty nice. But there's one thing that we still need to do, and that is change the fuse from the solar panel. And I like fuses because they give you a lot of security if something goes wrong. And I don't like the fuses with the switch inside. Most of them are not accurate enough, and the previous solar panel needed a 10 amp fuse, and I'm gonna replace it with this 20 amp fuse, and I like this type of fuse. And yes, this blows and you need to replace it with another one if that happens, but if you make a correct 12-volt system, fuses only blow when there's a problem or a short or something that's wrong. Just flipping the switch up and then hoping that the problem disappears is not a solution. So if a fuse blows, you know that you need to troubleshoot it. So yeah, let's put a 20 amp fuse in here. Okay, I have now 12.9 volt because my battery bank is almost empty. I need to recharge it again. The MPPT is now also on. Let's give it a solar panel. And what I now need to do in the Victron app, go to the Smart Solar 100/30. And of course we first need to do a firmware update. Let's press update. And I'm gonna put a charge cable in my phone because it's almost empty. And my Unimog makes the best power bank there is. 200 amp hour lithium power bank for charging your phone. And the Aolithium batteries are really performing great. I really like them. I can just induction cook and stuff like that, and I have so much power in this Unimog. But now with enough solar, I also can recharge it when I'm standing still. So the firmware is now updated, and then we go to battery. And then battery preset, select preset, lithium iron phosphate live PO4. And now everything is set up to use the solar controller with the lithium batteries. And right now it's doing 0 watts because it's dark outside and in my workshop. But still it makes 12.69 volt. Let's check the smart shunt, and I have 18% battery left in the lithium batteries, and that's an advantage of the lithiums. You can just pull every power out of it. So I'm just gonna run it a little bit more down and then charge it probably by 5% or something. So the panel is installed, but I can't go outside with my Unimog right now because the engine is out, my clutch broke and the cabin is off and I'm still repairing it. Why should you choose a domestic panel over a normal, like a camper panel? First of all, those panels are much cheaper. They probably sell thousands of them and only a few hundred of the more camper panels, because every house needs at least 10 or 12 of this size. So they make much more, so the panels can be cheaper. Only a disadvantage can be this panel is 20 kilos. On my Unimog, 20 kilos on the roof is not an issue. But on smaller campers, it can be an issue if you have a weight limit, and then a camper panel is better in terms of weight, but you pay a lot more. Also the flexible panels that are super lightweight are super expensive because they make less of them. I still need to see how durable it is, but my Unimog is on coil springs, so as you can see, the suspension is pretty flexible and pretty soft, so I don't think the panel will break that easy. So I can make aluminium strips under it, or just try out this panel as it is now to see how it goes. And it was only 75 euros, so I can always replace it with something else. And that's also my idea, that I just take one panel, and if it breaks I just put another panel on. So what would I do if I need more solar than this panel? Of course I can go to a 400 watt panel or even bigger, but then it sticks out to the front and that doesn't look that good. So one option is that you just make a system under it, that you can angle it to the sun, and I'm not the biggest fan of that, because then you are always busy with putting your truck or fan on the right angle to the sun, and it's too much hassle in my opinion. So I would just take two of those panels, but I don't have room for them. But if I stack them together like this and make slides for the lower panel, and when I'm parked I just slide the underside panel forward, and then I double the size of the panels, and then just with two solar controllers. So I think that's a good solution. Just stack them, make them slide. I will put an Amazon affiliated link in the description to the Victron solar controllers, because they are just great, and with the Bluetooth option they work absolutely amazing. And if you buy the solar controller from that link, I will get a little bit of money, and that supports my channel. Or you can support me on my Ko-fi page or make a PayPal donation. And thanks for watching.